For me, that means getting on the bus and driving 20 minutes down the road.
You drive the bus?
Only when I steal it.
Oh, you heard him. You heard it here last, everyone. Aaron steals buses.
This is not a threat, Mr. Cincinnati, I promise.
That
Uh,
that makes that means that Aaron is straight bussin'.
oh God, I'm leaving that bit in and I'm gonna force you to listen to it.
In the Magic the Gathering community, the people are entertained by two separate yet equally unimportant groups: the content creators who contribute to the health of the formats, and the bored idiots with too much free time who only make things worse. This is the latter.
Hello and welcome back to the Locthwain Lobby Podcast. We are here for episode 19, titled Building the Typical, Atypically. But before we get into that, I am, as I always am, your host, Aaron, second of Locthwain. I am joined today by the Planeswalker symbol in the bottom left corner of a card when you think it's vintage, Russ, my partner in Slime.
You saying I'm a list card? That's really lame.
I'm saying you're a list card. You are a list card specifically when I'm hunting for vintage.
Yuck.
Yuck indeed.
What are we doing this week, Aaron?
This week, we are going to go over a couple of art decks that have been mentioned and or torn down before, and we're going to approach them and look at them from the philosophies with which we like to build decks, which is taking a well-known concept and flipping it on its head a little bit. But before we do that, Russ, let's talk about this week in Magic. What did you get up to?
I really haven't done any magic since last week. My life is a little boring.
That's perfectly fair. You are preparing for big things coming up. Your life and your work is constantly exhausting, but I do know for a fact that you finished a popper deck
I did. That's your fault.
because I finished it for you. Yeah, your popper spy deck is ready to go. Picking up a couple cards at SCGCon, and then it is ready to sit down and take that popper 1K on at the end of the week.
Which I know that we said we were going to do that at the end of the show, but do we want to talk about the con first?
Might as well. I brought it up. Let's dive into it a little bit.
Yeah, so this upcoming weekend, the weekend that this episode releases, is SCGCon Cincinnati, and it will actually be Aaron's first convention ever. And so we wanted to t I wanted to talk a little bit about, as someone who is much more experienced in going to conventions, what to expect at your first convention.
Yeah.
And first of all, did you have any questions about what to expect, Aaron?
Not really. I was kind of hoping to get some trades in and maybe move into some more advanced pieces, but I also understand that mostly at cons they're looking for specifically what's on their buy lists, so trading isn't really a huge thing. Um, I think
They
it's
will
more
still
just
take trade-ins, but they'll pay a premium for what's on their buy list.
I think it's just more like what the vibe is going to be. Is this is an SCG con? I understand it's not like a Magic Con, but are you going to have the people in cosplay and going real hard with it, or is this just a bit more of a casual kind of vibe?
SCG Con, since it's like a, what's the word I'm looking for? A vehicle for the RC, is going to be a lot less like a typical convention, and it's going to be mostly tournaments, but there are also vendors there.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the vendors. Star City Games is going to be there. Toa Magic is going to be there. Some interesting groups are going to be representing the TCG world, and I'm kind of hoping with that being the case that I can find myself like a one of one or chase item specifically to come home with. I know I've been saving up a good amount of money to do this, so it would be cool to find something specific that I can point to and say, yeah, I got this at my first convention.
Yeah, Aaron's looking for the one ring. Hopefully Post Malone shows up.
Yeah, I'll pay $400 for it, and that is the most I'm able to pay for it. I'm sure that that'll be a good offer.
But as far as what to expect, the main things are, if you get there early enough on the first day, one of my personal favorite things to do is to go to the booths that are primarily known for reserve lists. So I think at this particular convention, it will be the TOA Magic booth. And you look at their heavily played and damaged reserve list product that you can
I
get at a very good price.
That's where I would like to find something cool. I have a propensity and an enjoyment for well-loved Magic cards. I would love to find something really unique one of those high value reserve list cards that obviously saw play in the early days, and just have that and that experience and that shared kind of journey through Magic would be really cool for me.
Yeah. I've seen really good prices on duels, on stuff like Wheel of Fortune, Yawgmoth's Will, all these like CEDH staples that see a lot of play. I've seen them for very reasonable prices as far as reserve list cards go.
Now, with pre-modern doing the thing that pre-modern is doing, I still expect there to be some level of elevation on those, but I would love to find a Yogg's Will. I think
Yeah.
Yogg's Will would very much be a really cool card to put in Shadowheart.
It would be a very interesting poll if you could find one.
I'm just not I'm not huge on the dual lands. You know, I play a good amount of two-color decks. I typically don't go above two colors because my personal philosophy with Magic. So I'd love to find some of those interesting old monocolor cards that don't see much play or aren't. Heck, a foil Parallax Tide would be sick. Just something really off the beaten path. One of those cards you don't really think about being reserveless. Maybe an All Hallows Eve in busted up shape.
Right.
Heck, even get me a Chains of Mephistopheles under $1,000 and I could be tempted.
Good luck on that one. I haven't seen too many copies of Chains at these conventions because it's a very expensive card, but it's also still very niche.
It is very niche. Speaking of very niche, that's a good transition. Let's talk about the niche commander decks that we play.
Segues are weird. Yeah. What's on the docket, Aaron?
So today we are talking about building your typical decks in alternative ways. And I personally have identified two paths that I typically see that happen in. The first being you can go against what your commander says to take advantage of your commander, like Lucius does in subverting the fact that it wants to be aristocrats and instead throwing himself at things. And then where the other side would be going against the color identities thing to use those powerful cards in a new way, which is where I'm going to bring up my Kinzu deck that is very rapidly becoming my signature deck.
Yeah. This is a topic that I think has been quite a long time coming, since that's
Hmm.
kind of like the calling card for what this podcast is about.
Hmm.
And we've spent a lot of time talking about individual decks, just dedicating episodes to those. Lucius has gotten its own as episode. I don't think we've talked about Kinzu on the
No,
podcast before.
this is going to serve a lot as the Kinzu episode
Yeah,
in a way. But you're absolutely right. You know, we spent our first several episodes looking at specific aspects of building decks, where they come from, how we adapt those into our game plan. And we've hinted a lot at doing things in a different way and finding a different intention into how to set these things up. But we haven't ever really shown how we put it into practice. We've hinted at it with Bassandra and not being a typical Boros deck and a few other things, but we've never really talked down the strategies of how this works.
right. So let's jump right in with talking about Lucius because I like to talk about me and I want to get that in before you try to talk about you and take over the rest of the episode.
I have a habit of doing that, yes.
Yeah, I know. So we talked about Lucius a couple episodes ago, which was about a month and a half ago at this point now, I think.
Hmm.
And we came up with a lot of cards that I wanted to try out, and some of them I've tried out, some of them I haven't gotten around to trying out in this deck. The biggest change that came to this deck was the addition of Necromancy. That card is a house in this deck. Um, but the just to reiterate, the origin of this deck was starting out as getting really tired of your typical aristocrat strategies. So the like forced sacrifice, like I kill this little dork, and you have to sacrifice something on your board, and you just never get to keep anything on the board, and it's not fun for anyone involved. And I sort of morphed that into I'm going to sacrifice this gigantic 5/3 and specifically throw him at your little tiny guy so that I keep getting ETB triggers over and over instead of leave the battlefield triggers over and over.
Yeah. First of all, I do need to step in and say, I told you so. Necromancy was my suggestion.
Shut up.
So, I told you so, and you're welcome. Second, I do, as I've talked about before, I love the Lucius deck. I do think it subverts the expectation of an aristocrats deck while still kind of feeling in a way like its own version of aristocrats.
I call it fistocrats.
It is fistocrats. And the side that I pointed this at is to go against your commander to take advantage of your commander or to use your commander. So Lucius very much in its wording wants you to use your typical black-red sack outlets, your uh, altars, your Viserys, those kinds of things, so that you can kill it quickly at instant speed, exile it, and then do the whole loop, do the thing.
Yeah,
Your end of the battlefield triggers come afterward, and honestly, it in a way plays very similarly to Kinzu, but in its own path. I love that you built this in a way that doesn't use those instant speed sack outlets. It's very much what the deck wants. Reading the card, my first place went to how many ways can I sacrifice this? And pivoting it into that, I'm going to do this at instant speed, use mana to do it, and have additional effects off of it is interesting and really
yeah.
cool.
So the biggest thing that I wanted to do when I was first building this deck, I wanted to completely ignore any card, and I was struggling to find an explanation for this when we did the deck tech for Lucius. I wanted to take away any card that takes away a player's agency.
Hmm.
So anything like Grave Pact, Dictate of Erebos, Bastion of Remembrance, all of these cards, maybe not Bastion of Remembrance, I might be misremembering that card.
Hmm.
But any of these cards that say when you lose a guy, your opponents have to sack a guy. I wanted people to still be able to interact with this deck in a meaningful way while still having access to my own game plan. This deck can be sort of soft countered by either giving hexproof to whatever I target or by taking Lucius out of play without killing him by like an Oubliette or Lignify or any sort of effect like that.
Or the third way would be to have those instant speed sack outlets yourself and sacrifice the target for Lucius's ability, which I was just reading through the rulings. But I
Yes.
mean, there
Which,
that's
if that happens, he does not exile himself because he does not exile until resolution of his ability.
but there are just very specific decks that do that, so you're not going to see that very often.
Correct. Um, yeah, that was the next point I was going to make. If he loses target, he does not exile, so you do not have another opportunity to put him in the command zone. He just has to
Mhm.
stay in the graveyard.
Which sucks. That kind of
It's
blows.
That's why we put more reanimation in this deck.
We definitely I mean the reanimation's a good idea. I mean even if you like Bajuka Bog your own graveyard or something, he'll come back into the command zone, but it's a weird ability that is, in my opinion, a very subtle drawback to the card that doesn't get acknowledged very often, and those kind of subtle drawbacks are what make these decks interesting to me.
Yeah. And this deck did originally contain a infinite mana combo that used Ashnod's Altar and Reassembling Skeleton in combination with Pitiless Plunderer.
Ooh, ew.
And it would make infinite mana, and then I just cast a gigantic Exsanguinate for like X's a billion.
Which I would still argue is a way that the deck wants to behave. That is a very typical mono black way things. I mean, it's a Rakdos card, but that's a very typical mono black sort of loop win, do the thing.
Yeah. And since then, I have since removed this combo in favor of some splashy, giant, huge game enders with Crowded Crypt for one and Doomsday Excruciator.
That's super interesting. All three of the cards that you've mentioned sound really familiar. Did I recommend those? I think I
No,
did.
Doomsday Excruciator was recommended by Maldhound.
Okay, fine, but the Crowded Crypt and the
Was also not recommended by you. I found that one
I
on my own.
I did recommend it at one point.
No, you did not.
Are you calling me a liar on my own podcast?
I ain't calling you a truther on your own podcast.
How dare you challenge me in front of all seven of our loyal listeners?
All seven and a half of them.
Because I listened to half of the episodes when I edit.
You listened to the episode in double speed.
Peek behind the corner. We listen to ourselves at double speed when we edit because otherwise we cannot stand the sound of our own voice.
Yeah, we got to Alvin and the Chipmunks ourselves to be able to stand it.
One of my favorite moments doing this show, the Grand Arbiter Audi has a very expressive, sort of higher pitched voice. So when I hit it to 1.5 audio, it was the great. Honestly, it cured my mental health problems for a brief period of time. It was really wonderful. Um, but getting back into what we talk about before we go on some tangent about how much we love our friends, because we do that often, and then we insult them, and that's what we do. The big thing that I wanted to ask is when you're looking at how the deck differs from other Aristocrats Rakdos builds, where does it draw inspiration from its source material?
So the biggest inspiration was really just reading the card Fling.
Okay.
I realized pretty early on that the sacrifice as a cost puts Lucius's ability above the resolution of Fling. And so I just started looking for every kind of card that is Fling, basically. So things like Annihilating Glare, which just destroys when you sacrifice a creature. Thud is just a second copy of Fling. Conclusion. Yeah, Fiery Conclusion. Just all these cards that say sacrifice a creature to kill a creature. It feels a lot more. It's like the Joker. These sacrifice outlets, they're too quick. You gotta use a knife because you really want to feel the other person's life leave their eyes.
So from the basis of what Rakdos typically wants to do, what do you think it shares with your generic Rakdos deck versus how it is on its own as well?
Uh, that is a good question because I don't think that this matches any other Rakdos Aristocrats-esque deck in any way. This this deck doesn't make a bunch of tiny tokens and then throw them all individually. It just keeps throwing the same guy over and over. And I play cards like Clackbridge Troll to give my opponents creatures so that I have things to target if they're doing like a Spellslinger strategy. That is the closest that this deck comes to taking away someone's agency. Like you're gonna have creatures whether you want to or not.
Take my gifts, god dang it. Um, I also like that the big difference, sorry, let me rephrase that. The big difference to me is when you look at most of these Rakdos Aristocrats decks, they are doing direct damage. They are burn decks. You look at Jury, you look at Judith, you look at Rakdos himself, you look at Ob Nixilis. A lot of these cards are wanting you to kill something, deal direct damage to opponent. This feels very much different because you still have to find a different way to kill your opponent. All you're doing is controlling the field with it, which honestly feels more like a white thing.
Yeah. This is very much a board control deck in that it has just removal for days.
Hmm.
I'm maintaining the board and policing the board, but I'm doing it in a very aggressive way compared to some white decks.
So, pivoting away just for a minute from that, I want to look at the other pathway and then come together and compare the two. So, the other side of things is that you can choose to go against your commander's color identity and use the powerful cards that they have in kind of a new, different way. And I wanted to bring up Kinzu to talk about this. And I think Kinzu and Lucius, as I said, share some similarities. They both care about killing your things to do the ETB triggers and have that come back constantly. I think the big difference is Lucius plays reanimation, Kinzu refuses to do so. Uh, Kinzu does not want things in the graveyard. Kinzu wants things to die, but a full graveyard means that she didn't get to do her thing. What Kinzu says is that whenever a creature that I control dies, I can pay 2 life, exile it from the graveyard, and put it onto the battlefield as a copy that is a 1/1 with Toxic. This is very efficient with things like Mikaeus combos, that kind of thing. But much like Lucius, it makes those combos and those interactions a bit more deliberate. It's
Mhm.
less of a race to how fast can I do this, and it's more when do I need to do this.
Yeah. I look at your deck. When I first read Kinzu, there was another legendary creature that came to my mind, but it was in very different color combination. It was in Bant, and it's Bernard Ginger Sculptor.
She is very similar to Bernard, isn't she?
Yeah.
I had never really considered that, but I like that comparison.
So they're similar in that they literally have the same ability, except Bernard makes them into food golems and yours just gives them toxic.
Which feels on brand.
Yeah. Insert Britney Spears sound effect here, but don't actually, because we don't need a DMCA strike. Bernard having access to more colors gets access to very different types of ETB triggers. You'll have a lot more draw triggers, you have some naturalize-esque triggers, and you have things like Aven Interrupter
Hmm.
that you can sacrifice and then get another copy of it. It feels very similar, but ultimately they will have two very different game plans.
The interesting thing to me about Bernard is that it is in Bant. That ability, I mean, sure, the food abilities is definitely green, but the food ability specifically has been more applicable, I think, to green black as of late, specifically pertaining to Igra. I know
Hmm.
that Bernard came out before Bloomborough, but they're kind of in the same development cycle. So seeing Bernard doesn't have black is fascinating to me, but I like that point. I would be interested in looking into maybe brewing that deck to see what the similarities and the differences are to Kinzu.
Right. I was looking at this deck once upon a time, and I'm looking at the EDH rec page for it now, and one of the interesting strategies for it is a birthing pod strategy.
Oh, that definitely makes sense. And if you want to get really weird with it, you can do repurposing day too and make it an artificer deck. Take
Yeah.
advantage of the foods. Anyway,
And there's
back
also all the creatures that have secrets of Strixhaven that enter prepared now.
which is something I was going to talk about a little bit later with this too. But these kinds of decks where they kind of take away your graveyard in a way, they
Hmm.
make you use different things to get your wins. So I play a Mikaeus in this deck, and one of the cards I love to point out in this deck is that I play a Mikaeus. Mikaeus the Unhallowed is a classic mono black piece that is associated with many different infinite combos. Loop, 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 do the thing. With Kinzu's ability and the way this deck wants to operate, that's not really possible. And it's one of the things, I mean, sure it is if I put the right other pieces in there, but in my opinion, that's not how the deck wants to exist. Sacrifice those creatures to Mikaeus or whatever ability, you bring them back, you take advantage of that. But instead of doing the massive grave crawler loops that you might do, or the turbo reanimation loops you see from Mikaeus builds, you have to take more advantage of the incremental value cards. Things like Grimharya Specs, Morbid Opportunist, your Blood Artists are going to be critical. Your Arnin, Deathbloom Botanist, new card from Strixhaven, is going to be a critical card. Anything that sees those creatures die that can then either replenish the life that you just lost from Kinzu or replenish the card in hand that you just had to use to sacrifice it feels interesting, at least to me. And it feels like a good deck where I can use those really good cards like Vilis and Vein Ripper in different ways.
It's really interesting because I just listened to the Good Time Boys episode about aristocrats, which I think came out a couple months ago, and I'm seeing a lot of the really important pieces for that strategy in this deck, but not like the big splashy sack outlets that they mentioned. Like I see an Ashnod's Altar, I see a Blasting Station, but there's also like a an Urza's Incubator because you have sort of a typal strategy with
Vampires.
vampires. Yes.
And the Ashnod's Altar, being fully transparent, the Ashnod's Altar and the Urza's Incubator are mostly in there because I have a 5-drop commander. If she
Yeah.
dies once, I'm paying 7 mana, which I'm already having to pace myself to get her on the board at a decent point while keeping an eye on my board and making sure that I can take advantage of her before she draws attention. She dies, I now have to recreate that board.
Right.
So anything that can subtract that, the fact that we have a sub theme of vampires is convenient. Things like your the newer cards, Sentient Sanguinist, Scheming Silver Tongue, those get benefits off of it, but to a lesser extent. The ideology that this is an aristocrats deck is also something I was thinking about. I think it is, but it isn't the same way Lucius is, but it isn't. It takes advantage of different kinds of sacrifice outlets to get the most value out of those limited creatures. One of the biggest bangers and my new black card that I think is going to go stocks very soon. Those of you who know that trend know that trend. Fell Beast of Mordor from the Lord of the Rings Commander deck. Are you aware of this card?
Fell Beast of Mordor. Oh yeah, we did t very briefly talk about this deck at one
Mhm.
or this card at one point.
This this might be the strongest sacrifice outlet in the deck. It does multiple things for me. When it enters the battlefield, it has Devour 1. I can sacrifice any number of creature. Creature enters with that many 1/1 counters on it. And then when it enters or attacks, target opponent loses X and gains X, and I gain X life, where X is the number of 1/1 counters on it. So this is arguably the strongest sack outlet in the deck, because I'm going to have all these little 1/1s with Toxic that are going to have limited effect. Drop the Fell Beast of Mordor, choosing to sacrifice one of the things I want to come back, and then a bunch of the 1/1s. I now have a big beater that just gained me life, paid for the reanimation on the other thing, and cleared my board for more useful things that come down the line. That's what this deck likes to do. Instead of just cycling to your Warren Soul Traders, your Phyrexian Altars, it is a sacrifice deck. It is an Aristocrats deck, and it is a very much a mono black deck, but it's not a reanimator deck. It's not a graveyard deck. 99% of the time, when you look at the cards that are in this deck, you expect to see reanimates, animate dead, incarnation technique, big reanimation spells. And if you look at my deck list, you will see none of those. And the reason
Yeah.
is this deck is interesting without them. Throwing those in there turns it into every other mono black deck.
It's all of these things at once, but also being none of these things at once.
Which is the whole point of today's episode, talking about Kinzu and Lucius specifically. They all, though both of these decks are standard aristocrats decks. They do take use of or make use of the same sacrifice, do this. When a card dies, do this. When a creature goes to your graveyard, do this. But they do them in their own ways. And in black and black red, that first part is a typical thing to do. It is the kind of thing that you see a lot of decks take advantage of because that's what the color identities want to do. But they're also not doing that in the typical way. And that was the big thing I wanted to bring up today, however long that may take to talk about, because both of these decks are very weak to certain things. Board wipes kill you as much as they kill me. If I'm going to play a board wipe, which is a very black thing to do, I have to be careful about the timing. Otherwise, I could blow my whole game plan out of the water, whereas some decks are better rebuilding. Your deck, if there's a board wipe that hits, you suddenly have no targets for Lucius by the time Lucius resolves. So Lucius is going to come back, be in the graveyard, or back in the command zone, and you have to pay for him again. Most of these style of decks are very resilient to board wipes, and neither of these are.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because the in Lucius I have a couple of cards that they sacrifice Lucius, but they don't actually kill anything. So cards like Lash of the or not Lash of the Balrog, excuse me. Corrupted Conviction, cards like that. They sacrifice a creature and draw you cards instead. So cards like Village Rites, that's the other one I was trying to think of.
Yeah, Village Rites is good.
Uh Village Rites, Nasty End, uh and Corrupted Conviction. These all sacrifice a creature at instant speed, and they draw me cards. In the case of a board wipe, I can sacrifice Lucius, put him on something that's going to die anyway, and then get him back, and then I just have a wide open attack with a 5/3.
Which is an alternative way to do things.
Yeah,
It's a cool and interesting way to handle that instead of just having to drop your reanimate or your animate dead, like I said. And I really didn't want to spend too much time on this today. It's not a
sure.
super complex subject. I wanted to sit down and talk about it though, because the big thing that I got hung up on for a long time with deck building was if you use good cards, you're building a typical deck. And one of the things that I've been working on lately and working with the friends in the Locthwain Lobby on doing is acknowledging that I'm allowed to play good cards. There's nothing wrong with that if you do it in your own way. Now,
Yeah.
there's also nothing wrong with building a generic good stuff deck. I just think it's less interesting. So, this deck for me has very much been an exercise in how can I use these really good cards in new and interesting ways. And I'm very happy with how it came out. Blasting Station would typically revolve around a Gravecrawler style loop. And in this deck, it's more of a I'm going to feed myself with whatever is dying on the battlefield and coming back kind of deck. It's going to essentially one for one my opponents with the life I'm losing to hit you. It's a separate sack outlet that has alternate utility and synergizes very well with Kinzu.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention about Kinzu or Lucius?
Um, Really, I just wanted to kind of like the last thing I wanted to do is as these new sets come out, the cards that we see and the staples that we get used to evolve and change. I was interested if looking at Secrets of Strixhaven, now that we have plenty of time to breathe under it, you've thought about throwing any of these new cards into Lucius.
Yeah, so last time we had an episode, we very briefly I jump scared you with talking about one card from each color that we were interested in. And I mentioned Melancholic Poet and Steal the Show as possible includes for Lucius. I then spent a little bit more time looking into the set, and I looked at the Commander set, and I stumbled across Relic Retriever and Ominous Harvest, which are both, I think, going to be incredible includes for Lucius.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ominous Harvest is it's target 200 black for a sorcery. It says target player draws a card and loses one life, and it has Gravestorm, which means it's storm for every permanent put into a graveyard from the battlefield.
Which is wild, just
Yeah,
absolutely insane in that deck. I'm interested to know if there are a lot of other cards with Gravestorm, because I think if
there are
any,
4 cards total with Gravestorm.
and how many of them are useful to you?
To me, let's find out. I know one of them is called Follow the Bodies. I know there's 3 cards with Gravestorm. So Follow the Bodies is Gravestorm Investigate.
Blue.
Uh, Bitter Ordeal is search target player's library for a card, remove that card from the game, then that player shuffles with Gravestorm, and then now we have Ominous Harvest.
So Bitter Ordeal, as interesting of a card it is, feels absolutely like it's taking away too much agency.
Yeah.
And then the
If I wanted to play this kind of effect, I would just play Praetor's Grasp
yeah, which is just a better card.
because it lets you play that card and doesn't just take it out of the game entirely.
Yeah. Um, and I like that pick for you. The interesting thing about Lucius is new really good black or red cards can be printed. That doesn't mean that they're going to be good in a good black and red deck. It being an atypical build and a different approach to the colors, these brand new staples that come out every set, they're not always going to apply to you. And I like that it is simultaneously sort of future proof, but also resilient and flexible. Because
Yeah.
what may be a staple to someone else, you're going to look at it and go, wait, that's really good in this deck. Other decks don't like it in this color combination. It's not going to work. But here, in this specific Lucius build, it's going to take advantage of a lot of the synergies that already exist.
Were there any cards you were looking at for Kinzu in this same vein?
I think it will shock absolutely nobody to know that I have already spent far too much money on this set.
What?
I know, right? Me, irresponsible with my limited funds.
Never would have
Shocking.
guessed.
But I have already picked up several cards for Kinzu that I am giving a shot. First things first is the Grim Harry uh, special guests foil because it is just a stunning card. I adore what they have done with some of my favorite cards in this run of special guests. No complaints from me. I love the Grim Hardy spec, so I picked that up. I did also find one card from the Commander set that might be from the same Commander set. I picked up Stensian Sanguinist, one in a black.
Is that the one that has Exsanguinate on it?
It is whenever you attack, target creature gains death touch till end of turn. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, this creature becomes prepared. So Stensian
Hmm.
Sanguinist is going to have Exsanguinate. It's not going to enter ready to go, but it can be ready to go very soon. And in a deck like Kinzu, one of the other points that I wanted to bring up is in black, everyone says life is a resource. I am going into credit card debt with my life with this deck. So a card like Stensian Sanguinus that gives me repeated Exsanguinate triggers is super cool and super helpful. Because even if I'm only paying one into that every turn, that's my 3 drop. That's my life gain back on something that died and a little bit of drain around the table.
There you go.
The power on Stensian Sanguinist, I think, has been underappreciated.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where you go with that deck because I think I've only played against Kinzu one time.
Yeah.
It is in fact in the same bracket as Lucius, so I would be interested to see how these decks in particular match up.
Well, with the inclusion of another Strixhaven card, Emeritus of Woe, it synergizes just way too well. I have kind of slid it into the bracket three in my mind because, yes, Emeritus of Woe essentially says 6 mana Demonic Tutor the first time. But in this deck, I'm going to be preparing it at least every turn, having a demonic tutor every single turn that I can protect or sacrifice to something to re-prepare it that same turn and get another demonic tutor is incredibly powerful. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm considering that it might be too powerful and I might pull it from the deck, but I like Emeritus of Woe for now. It helps find some of those specific pieces I may need.
I My initial thought is that it's probably going to be fine, but we will just have to see. It's impossible to accurately predict how much stronger certain cards will make a deck.
Yeah, we're still very too early. I think the one I've added a couple more. I mentioned Arnon earlier, which is just a drain and gain effect. Whenever a creature I control power one or less dies, it's drain and gain two across the table. It's just a way to take advantage of the one-ones that are dying when Kefter Kinzu exiles them. Those are going to die as well. I need to find some way to benefit off of those. It doesn't say non-token creature, just as creature, so just a cute little way to take advantage of some of those one-ones with Toxic going. But Decorum Dissertation is a card that I am taking for a spin in this deck. And that is the mono black paradigm spell. 3 black black. Target player draws 2 card and loses 2 life. Paradigm. So I can cast it
Oh
during each
yeah,
of my upkeeps. Yeah.
I saw a brew for Legacy where someone was playing this. It was really interesting.
It's basically power crept sign in blood, and with the scheming silver tongue, I now have 3 different sign in blood effects in this deck. I like it. I like that we're getting more diverse black card draw. That being said, that's kind of all I've got for today. We were kind of expecting today to be a bit of a quicker one. We're getting ready to go out to Cincinnati for the SCGCon. For you, that means a 6.5 hour drive. For me, that means getting on the bus and driving 20 minutes down the road.
You drive the bus?
Only when I steal it.
Oh, you heard him. You heard it here last, everyone. Aaron steals buses.
This is not a threat, Metro Cincinnati, I promise. Uh,
That means that Aaron is straight bussin'.
oh God, I'm leaving that bit in and I'm gonna force you to listen to it.
I'll edit something stupid in. I'm sure there's a vehicle that's a bus.
It's the Battle Bus Grim Tutor. Or
Yeah,
yeah, no, it's the Battle
smuggler's
Bus
copter.
Smuggler's Copter. That's what it is. It's the Battle Bus Smuggler's Copter. Insert image here. But that's all I've got for today. I'm very excited for the convention coming up. I'm excited to see you, our friends from out of town, Samira, Serena. We are going to be there marketing as well, by the way.
Yeah, if you see us there, ask us for a token, and we'll give you a treasure token drawn by our artist, Abby.
If Dragon Shield can get their life together between now and Friday as well, we will have custom Locthwain Lobby sleeves that our wonderful friend and regional championship competitor, Sarita, may or may not play, depending on if it messes up their shuffle feel. But we will have them on a couple of our decks. So if you see those, feel free to talk to us, ask us any questions. We'd love to sit down and help you with your brew while we're there. Russ, is there anything else you'd like to say to the people before we send this one home?
If you see Aaron, call them cringe.
And if you see Russ, punch them in the face.
That too, yeah.
I give you consent to do that. Russ's consent is irrelevant.
Yeah, sure.
Um, let's go ahead and wrap us up then. Tell the people where they can find us, what we're going to be doing.
If you look down in the description below, you will find our link tree, which has the link to our Discord, which you can come through. You can hang out with us. You can answer the daily quibbin. You can get games with us. You can post decks and get feedback. You can just do all kinds of cool stuff. There's so much to do in that Discord. And Aaron and I are in there just about every single day. We have an awesome community, just so supportive and so awesome.
And also Foster.
And also Foster. You can also find the link to our stream where we do deck roasting, we do the occasional game. Our games aren't as popular, so I think deck roasting might sort of be our niche at this point.
Yeah, I think so. Those that tends to get a lot of attention, at least from our community, which at the end of the day, that's all we really care about is our
Yeah.
community. The fact that we are spreading a little bit and starting to touch some more kind of devices is really cool. But at the end of the day, this is something we're doing for our friends that we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So, the community likes it. It's what we're gonna do. You tell us what you want, and we will jump.
In the wise words of Maldhound, we're touching cards, touching hearts, and telling you if I would touch your commander's parts.
I suppose Mudhound does say that, yeah.
And you can also find the link to our YouTube and our Spotify if you want to listen to this podcast again, I guess. I don't know. If you want to listen to it on a different platform and give us more support, I can barely stand listening to my own voice, so I know everyone else can barely stand listening to Aaron's voice.
I also can't stand listening to your voice.
You can also find the link to my Mox Field where you can find the Lucius deck that we talked about. You can also find the link to Aaron's Architect, where we can find the Kinzu deck. If you see us at SCGCon, come by, say hi. We'll be all over the place, rotating around. I'll have tokens on me. Aaron will have tokens on them. They're free. Just ask for one. We'll give you one.
Yeah, and if we have time, we'd love to sit down and play a game of Commander with you. I know Russ is going to be participating in the Popper 1K. It's something I am very excited to see. The Popper community at my local game store is sort of the driving force behind having that, so I'm excited to see all of that play out. Value Vintage, if you do want to find another member of our community and dog on them, you can find Foster in the Value Vintage area, as long with Will, and I believe Samira is bringing a Value Vintage deck as well. So we are going to be just all over the place, friends.
I would have played in the Value Vintage event, but every single deck that I brewed jumped in price like in the last week.
Yeah, having a $30 deck restriction makes it really hard to keep up with the format, especially when pre-modern is destroying everything that we know and love.
I made like three different Merfolk decks and they all jumped above $30 in 2 days.
I love that for you.
Yeah. That's what happens when you try to fit Harbinger of the Season to a deck.
With all that said, Russ, let's send it home.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for watching, listening, dunking on Aaron at SCGCon, dunking on me at SCGCon, especially dunking on Foster at SCGCon and our stream. Uh, and when we send you out, just always remember that the best wins.
Are the flavor wins. Remember to do everything in Magic and in life your own way. Be true to yourself and enjoy whatever you enjoy.